Hi, everybody. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, based on where you are in the world. I'm Christine Comaford from Smart Tribes Institute. We're going to start in 2 minutes. No, 1 minute. So get settled in. You're going to want either the Trusted 10 worksheet that we sent, or you're just going to want to have a piece of paper. But we're going to want to, or a fresh Word document open, or Google Doc, or whatever technology you prefer. But you're going to need to write some stuff down, so make sure that you have that. Grab your cup of coffee or your glass of water, and we'll get started in just a sec. While everybody is settling in, I want to thank Alexis Chapman for being here today with us to be our moderator. She'll be handling all your questions. Remember, we have the chat box. So type on into the chat box if you have any questions, comments, whatever. And as I ask you questions, also just feel free to share so we can keep the communication going. We also have Tammy Spence behind the scenes, monitoring stuff to make sure everything is peachy keen and groovy. And we have you guys. So this is our third of 3 Power Your Tribe preview webinars. So we're so glad you're here. Thank you for investing the time to grow your leadership, to look at your behavior, and to look at how we can optimize our performance. So let's go. So today we're going to talk about biases. And I want you to experience biases, which we will in just a sec. So for those of you who don't know me, I'm Christine Comaford, and I'm a leadership and culture coach. What we do at Smart Tribes Institute is we do executive coaching, we do leadership coaching, culture coaching, and then we also really help teams perform more optimally together, come closer together, innovate better, navigate change better, etc. And that's what our new book is about, Power Your Tribe. It's really about getting to that level of resilience and emotional resilience around change, managing your stress more effectively, and then ultimately we want to get to agility, where we don't even have to go into stress. We can get the very early warning signs and boom, shift out of it, okay? We work with companies of all different shapes and sizes, so the tools you're going to learn today are used across the planet, different industries, different locations, different sizes. So they are agnostic, if you will, okay? Great. So here's what we're going to learn today. We're going to look at biases, cognitive biases, and how they actually damage our decision making. We're also going to look at the upside of bias. So there's a downside of bias, but there's also an upside. Since we have biases anyway, let's figure out how to make your biases work for you, right? So we're going to take your leadership to the next level by understanding this. First, let's just look over to the right and notice the resilience cycle. And this is where, when we're going through growth, when we're going through change, we want to be really aware as to what's going on. So usually we will resist. Oh no, here comes a change. We resist it. Oh no, the world is moving so fast. So look at the things in your life that you resist. First, we want to release resistance. We talked about that in our first webinar. Then we want to increase rapport with ourselves and learn how to make new meaning. You can't change the stuff that happens outside of you to a large degree, but you can change how you respond to it inside. So our last webinar was on that. Anchoring the outcome, we'll talk about that. For everybody who purchases Power Your Tribe, you'll get a big, long webinar that we're going to do in February. That will be a much deeper dive. So here we go. Let's get started. The benefits of bias, when you use it to your benefit, is we can avoid costly errors in financial decisions. We can make sure that we get the right hire in the recruiting process. We can close those deals on the best terms possible for everybody. Better sales decisions, if you will. We can increase innovation from different points of view, because those different points of view are really valuable. We can increase our problem-solving abilities, and then we can really encourage our team members to take initiative. So we find that when you optimize your experience of bias, you can actually get a lot more performance from yourself and others with less burnout, less exhaustion, less stress. So real quick overview of your brain. Artistic rendering, this is not physiologically accurate. 3 main parts of your brain that we're concerned with: reptilian brain, mammalian, and neocortex. Reptilian brain, fight, flight, freeze, life support systems here: breathing, temperature regulation, balance. If the reptilian brain could speak, it would say dead or not. Mammalian brain, our emotional center. The limbic system primarily resides in the mammalian brain, but it does touch all areas of the brain. And the limbic system is where we have fight, flight, freeze. So we have learning, we have memory, also in the mammalian brain. If it could speak, it would say friend or foe. A little bit more evolved, if you will, than dead or not. Next layer up, neocortex. Prefrontal cortex right behind your forehead. This is, pardon me, this is the most evolved part of the brain here, the prefrontal cortex. Decision making, problem solving, tool making, etc. If the prefrontal cortex could speak, it would say, what can I create? The challenge is when we go into stressful scenarios, we go into what we call the critter state. Fight, flight, freeze, dead or not, safe or not, we're in lockdown. Friend or foe, we are looking to survive. But when we go there, we get all sorts of problematic behaviors, right? Low accountability, low motivation, unhealthy conflict, silos, urgency, addiction. If everything's urgent, nothing's important. Misguided effort, low results. What we want to do is use the tools that we learned today to help people get in and stay in their smart state. This is when all three parts of the brain are working together. We have innovation, we have creativity. If we receive a flame email from somebody, we can say, gosh, that person's just having a bad day. We can respond from choice. The ROI of getting in and staying in your smart state is huge. The more people we have in their smart state, the more we have a smart tribe. So now that we see the ROI, we see that it's worth using these tools and learning them, let's go on in. First, take a sec and check in. Human beings are emotional. As we've covered on prior webinars, 90% of our decisions are dominated by our emotional brain. Take a sec, type into chat, let us know where you are today. How are you feeling today? I'll go first, and everybody just type in. These are just some suggestions. If how you're feeling is not on here, type in how you're feeling. So I am feeling curious and peaceful. How are you feeling? Type it all in. Cool, hopeful, creative, jazzed, nurturing, thoughtful, relaxed and content. Thank you. Great, cool. So thoughtful, thoughtful in caps, relaxed and peaceful, thoughtful and curious. Okay, right on. So as we check in, we want to be using the emotion wheel on a regular basis because frankly, we want to know how we're feeling. That's how we can navigate the world. The way that we use emotions are like wings for a bird. Emotions actually help us as humans navigate our world and experience our world. That's why they're so important. All right, so we want to use Power Your Tribe. For those of you who are waiting for it, it's going to come in late January, early Feb. We want to use this to help our teammates as well, everybody in our life, personal and business, to get to the next level. All right, grab your worksheet. Make a list of the top 10 people that you trust in your life. Work, friends, family. Make sure you put some work people in there. I want at least half of the people to be work, okay? 10 people that you trust most, right? In the chart, and if you don't have the chart handy, it doesn't matter. Do it on a piece of paper. Indicate what their gender is, what their race or ethnicity is, what their age is, sexual orientation is, education, disability, marital status. Take a couple minutes to do that. And then we'll do the reveal. Take a couple minutes. This is important. 10 people that you trust the most. What are their profiles? Okay. Who do you trust?
Christine, this is Alexis. We have an interesting question that came in. Should people have any difficulty reaching 10 people? Like if they can't reach 10, is that okay?
Thank you. That is okay, but we want to get critical mass. So, try to put in, 7 or 8. It is a numbers thing, okay? So please do your best, everybody, to just, here's some examples. So there are some colleagues at work that you trust. There might be some direct reports that you trust. You might trust your leader at work. You might trust the CEO. You might trust kind of in your family system, your spouse or significant other. Think of a few of your friends. Think of your parents, grandparents, relatives. Think of different service providers, right? Alexis and I have a handful of service providers that we love because they show up. They're so reliable. So we trust them, okay? Do your best. We'll give it another couple minutes, okay? I want you guys to get the juice from this lab. And to get that, you need to do the lab. Just do your best. All right. And please type into chat so we start to get a feeling for how close everybody is to being done. So when you're done, just type into chat and we'll kind of go with the critical mass, if you will. And while you guys are finishing, because some of you guys are finished already, one of the things that we get asked about a lot is unconscious biases. We all have biases that we're not aware of. Those biases affect our decision making. So it's actually really important to understand what our biases are. So take a sec and just think about this. You make decisions every day, and you make decisions based on certain criteria, but you also make decisions based on preferences, if you will, based on expectations, based on past experiences, if you will. And when we start to look at the Trusted 10 table, and this is a tool from Scott Horton, so I want to give him credit for this. When we look at the table that you're creating, the Trusted 10, start to notice the similarities. Start to notice gender similarities, race, ethnicity similarities, age similarities across your 10. How similar are they to you? Sexual orientation, education, disability, yes or no, marital status. So this exercise reveals some very interesting patterns in who you trust. Yes, there's demographic bias here for sure, but there's also a cognitive bias, and cognitive bias is the systematic deviation from the norm, the systematic deviation from rationality in decision making. This is why I want you to do this table. So biases cause conclusions, assumptions, inferences in a less than logical fashion. So look at your table for a sec, okay? Oh, thank you. Jason, what about political and religious affiliation? Yeah, you can feel free to add that in too. Thanks. We're just trying to kind of get the basics, but yeah, that's totally valid as well. Thanks, Jason. So I want you guys to start to think about this. This table reveals what we call the like-me bias. We are more likely to trust people that are like us. You see this in, unfortunately, many executive teams. Many leadership teams are very similar. And that's why we need more diversity, because similar biases, similar decision-making, similar conclusions, similar assumptions, etc. The problem with like-me, the like-me bias, is it creates unfairness, right? You have to be like the person, magically like them, in order to be in the in crowd. And we've talked in the past about inclusion and exclusion and how painful that is to the brain and how damaging it is to our performance. So let's go on. What's the problem? We all have biases, and this exercise reveals just the most obvious basic ones. So I want to stress this. The cognitive bias, I mentioned this before, systematic pattern of deviation from the norm or deviation from rationality in judgment. Biases cause us to jump to conclusions. Biases also, here's the worst part, they damage safety, belonging, and mattering. And we know how important safety, belonging, and mattering is in a high-performing culture. So what do we do about it? There are a bunch of biases, hundreds, but let's just deal with the ones that we see all the time in the world, the super duper obvious ones. Neil Jacobstein, famous artificial intelligence expert, has said that we can actually use artificial intelligence to bust biases. So check out these biases. Availability bias, and start to jot down on a piece of paper which ones do you have. We also are giving you guys a bias checklist that you can use as you go through making big decisions to make sure you got them and you didn't have bias skewing your decision making. So tendency to overestimate the likelihood of events occurring, okay, with greater availability. So overestimating favorable and pleasing, overestimating being over-optimistic. Anchoring. Anchoring is interesting. It's that tendency to rely too heavily or to anchor on one piece, one trait of information when making decisions. Well, because he has this, everything else is probably going to be fabulous. Well, actually, that's just one piece. Hindsight. You guys know this one, right? Hindsight's always 20/20, right? It's the I knew it all along, right? Bias. See past events as being predictable over time. Bandwagon, just like it sounds. Everybody jumping on. Well, it must be okay because everybody else is doing it. No, that's a bias. Optimism. We can totally succeed here, even though we have no expertise and no budget, and the time to market is crazy. Okay, optimism bias. Normalcy bias. This is also known as denial. Okay, think about this for a sec. Denial. When people make something normal that's not, like I went into a culture a little while ago where the hard to believe, the head of HR of all people was bullying people. And it had been happening for so long that it was like considered normal. And I came in and I was like, whoa, this is not okay. We can't do this. We need to change this. But people had become so accustomed to it. We are very adaptable human beings. We can normalize things very carefully. Watch out for normalization. Sunk cost loss aversion. Hey, we're just going to maybe give up or refuse to give up because we've already invested so much in this. Planning fallacy, right? Overestimate benefits, underestimate costs. So these are some really common ones. So take a second as we look at these and as we think about our behavior. Here's what happens when we actually increase the diversity, the inclusion in our culture. We get more different types of people that are not like us. We increase safety, belonging, mattering. We create that collective intelligence. And I spoke about this on a past webinar where 3 people can do the work of 5 when we have highly diverse teams. Innovation from different diverse points of view. That's excellent, right? Well, what if we try this? Wow, we never thought of that. Okay, that's why we need diversity. Easier, more diverse recruiting, right? We get more diversity in our recruiting mix and our company culture. Meritocracy. Meritocracy, we earn our rewards and that creates empowerment. So diverse teams vastly outperform homogeneous teams, period. We've seen this again and again. Okay, how do you deal with your biases? 3 ways. Remember, you have your checklist, okay? Take time. Make sure you aren't hungry or tired or stressed. Think about when you make bad decisions. I make bad decisions when I rush. Yeah, because I'm usually tired or stressed. And I don't always think about the future impact. So take your time. Number 2, bounce it off somebody else. Somebody else will definitely help you with a normalcy bias because they'll go, whoa, whoa. Normalcy, optimism, anchoring, those are great to catch when you bounce it off somebody else. So you can talk about biases for a sec, show them your checklist, show them the definitions, and they'll catch you on some of your biases. It's super helpful. Consider other options. Well, what else could I do? Do I actually even have to do this? Because often we feel a pressure, if you will, okay? Please jot these down. I want to give you a couple more. I want to give you a couple of extra tools. 3-minute journal. 3-minute journal is a great tool to use when you are looking at busting your like me bias. So say that there's somebody at work who's really different from you and maybe you don't like him or you don't feel connected to them. If you simply take a week or so every day, 3-minute journal on what's similar. Well, we both love our families. Well, we both like to eat healthfully. Well, we both like to work out, whatever. You're going to find that you actually are like them and they're like you. we use these filters, like the examples I gave, and Jason threw that one in about political as well. We use these filters to judge people superficially. And in the example I just gave, wow, you have a lot in common with that person. So 3-minute journal. Next, we can add diversity and inclusion structures in our company. So what some of our clients do is they actually remove the name of the person. So you can't really see, and sometimes even the university they went to. So you can't judge based on their name, based on their gender, etc. Many of you have heard the story that that's how I got my interview at Microsoft. You know, back in the 80s, it was a zillion guys. There weren't any female engineers, or actually there were 2, excuse me, in the whole company. So I wrote Chris Comaford on my resume. They called me, you know. That was a good tip from one of the guys told me to do that. That was a good tip. All right, moving on. Here we go, you guys. Please look at this. Tell me what biases, okay? So look at your little bias chart maybe. So our client needed to hire a VP of marketing to take the organization to the next level. He had 4 candidates who made it to the interview stage. One had even made it on site and had interviewed with 4 different key stakeholders. He favored that one candidate by a long shot over the others. He was ready to make an offer. The candidate had great accomplishments, but his resume showed a history of 1 to 2 year roles, and his last most successful role was in a much larger company with more resources, meaning, you know, more money, more staff, more help in a different industry. What red flags do you see? Which biases? So look at this for a sec, then we're going to unpack it. I want you to start to notice how prevalent these things are. So here are some tips. The client underestimated how long the process would take and what a great hire would cost. What's that? We're splashing around in the shallow end of the pool. Just type it into chat. Just throw it out there.
Okay, Christine, so we're seeing anchoring bias. We are also seeing planning fallacy bias.
Splash around, you guys. Just give it a shot. Give it a shot. This will help us start to, okay, and I see availability. Okay, planning fallacy. Oh, some of the other ones you guys are typing in, I'm not going to say them out loud, are coming up. Okay. Underestimated how long the process. This is planning fallacy. This could also be optimism, you guys. This could be optimism. Okay. Now, client focused on one piece of information, the candidate's current job accomplishments rather than the big picture. Thank you. Yes. 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 You guys got it.
We were seeing anchoring.
Anchoring. Okay. You know what? Sunk cost, Denise, there is some potential, and actually I could put sunk costs possibly in this whole scenario, because you get to a point where, like, I've talked to enough candidates, I've invested enough time, let's do it, and we make a mistake. All right, because the candidate was successful in his current situation, the client assumed he'd be successful in a much smaller organization, showing there's a lot of bias in all of these. We're just calling out the primary ones, so keep
optimism.
Let's see, normalcy, okay. Availability, and just a sec. This could also be optimism, you guys, okay? They were looking at low availability of information. This could also be considered anchoring. And you know what, Will, to be fair, I actually think normalcy is kind of working here too. So look at all these different angles and how each of these has multiple answers, okay? There's a lot of bias happening here. All right, last one. Client thought he'd have a solid candidate, identified, screened, hired within 6 weeks. Solid candidate, identified, screened, hired within 6 weeks. Splash around, everybody.
Optimism. Optimism.
Yep. Thank you, Laura, Will, around. Yeah, it goes on and on and on. Thank you. Yes. Meanwhile, back on Earth, right, to identify, screen, and actually give them, right, the offer accepted, whatever, 2 to 3 week, whatever notice rendered, and then starting. Wow, that's really short. Okay, good. You guys are getting this. Good, good, good. All right, let's do some questions. Let's do some questions. Type into chat. Let's unpack.
Okay, so all right. So we have a question from Kendra. Do I need to examine biases for every single decision that I make, or only the really important ones? What are some best practice ideas?
Yeah, okay, thanks, Kendra. I would, just because we only have so much time, it's kind of helpful to hang your bias sheet in your office. I want to encourage you to look at the biases for the big decisions, okay? Because the big decisions have the bigger impacts. So for the big decisions, please look at your bias checklist, okay? For the smaller ones, if you have any sort, we all have a spidey sense, like a Spider-Man sense, like, oh, this doesn't feel right here. So if we can just do those 3 things, where we say, okay, what else could I do? We take our time, you know, we check our biases. We can just do kind of a quick little check-in, because I find many people, increasing amounts of people, are making snap decisions because we're all feeling so stressed and pressured, okay? We don't want to do that, okay? Wow, so many questions are coming in. Sit down with your team, talk to your family, show them this PowerPoint, show them biases. Make sure when you have team meetings, you're all making sure that you're not swayed by biases, okay? Wow.
Okay, yes, we have a lot coming in. From Will, how do you ensure that you're getting a proper outside view and not just checking in with someone who shares your group think?
Look at your trusted 10, okay, and start to expand it. Go to somebody who is different on that list, maybe different gender, you know, different age, different educational background. That's where I just was asking, so my gardener has a really different profile than I have. And I was asking him a question the other day. I was about to make a decision. He had a much better idea. Okay, so look at all the people you can bounce off. Get somebody different from you, Will. You're going to get fresher, newer, less biased insights.
Wonderful. And from Jason, what are some great team practice resources we can use to train our team on how to identify and recognize biases?
You know what would be fun to do? Jason, go back on some decisions that you made that didn't work out so great. Because as a team, you have some, okay? And talk to people about biases and then unpack it together. What biases did we have in these decisions? What biases do we often get in trouble with, okay? We want to do this with our teams.
Great. All right, then. Just everybody, if you have additional questions that we weren't able to get to today, please just reply to the replay email that we will be sending out within 24 hours, and we welcome the opportunity to answer any of your questions and send additional resources at that time.
Right on. So let's talk about Power Your Tribe. And these webinars always go so quickly. Whew. So Power Your Tribe is our new book. It's coming out in January. Please order it through poweryourtribe.com. If you go to Amazon or somewhere else, you won't get all these benefits, all these little bennies. So we're doing a pre-order campaign. The door closes on the pre-order campaign December 31st. Okay. So December 31st, we want to make sure that you purchase your copies of Power Your Tribe at poweryourtribe.com. 1 or more copies, you get 4 webinars. Okay, you get the 15 proven processes, our favorite ones from Smart Tribe's playbook, which will help you put these tools in place. I know Will and Jason and all sorts of people wanted to get tools. So here's a great way to get tools. 42 videos. You're going to be really sick of looking at me. Okay, 7 audios, and we're putting everybody in a drawing, and somebody will get one-on-one coaching with me. So the above is all $2,000 worth of benefits, but you have to buy it at poweryourtribe.com. If you buy 25 copies by midnight tonight, we're going to give you the entire Smart Tribes playbook. And what's in there? A ton of stuff. All of our best templates for culture, building a strong culture, for boosting your leadership and the leadership of others, and for sales and marketing. You can see a bunch of the different infographics that we use in in Smart Tribe's playbook. The point is, we want to help fan out all this great learning. We want to help 1 million people to become emotionally resilient this coming year. So that means we have to actually create a movement. That's what we're doing, okay? If you want to bring us into your organization, we'll send you some more information on this. We're doing keynotes, etc., and we're giving away free copies of the book, again, to seed this movement of emotional resilience. Let's let people have more choice as to what their behaviors are, choice about how they feel, okay? Good. So let's now just look at one last thing. Let's maybe take 1 or 2 final questions, Alexis. I know we're scooching out the door.
Okay, let's see here. Actually, I like this one. And Scott asked, the Who Do You Trust Lab was a real eye-opener. Is this an exercise that should be repeated, and if so, how often?
Thank you, Scott. I think it would be interesting to do this about every year, you know. Now, here's the thing. It's really good to do this like me, Trusted 10, at work when you are looking at creating more diversity. It's a little shocking to look around your team at work and go, whoa, we're really similar. So I want everybody to try this at work. This is a great lunch and learn, you know, do it with your team. Just like the biases is as well. So do the Trusted 10 with your team. Look at the biases with your team. Look at how you make decisions. Look at the like me, the first lab that we did, the Trusted 10, and then look at how we make our decisions. Great. We'll take one more question, then I know we have to scooch.
One more question. This is from Vanessa. In your experience, what's the best way to deal with a team situation where the combination of individual bias is potentially creating a lack of productivity? She's in HR.
Okay, so here's a great thing to do, Vanessa. You guys will remember the outcome frame if you've been on other webinars of ours. I'm going to whip through it real quick, and then you can go to smarttribesinstitute.com/vision, and you'll see a video of the outcome frame. But Vanessa, if you have people that have a bunch of biases and everyone's going a different direction, you need to bring them all together and do a group outcome frame. What would we like? What would we like here? What will having that do for us? How will we feel? How will we benefit? How will we know when we have this outcome? Tangible, measurable, specific proof. What of value might we risk or lose? And that's probably where we're going to have to be kinder to each other. We're going to have to consider other points of view, etc. What of value might we risk or lose? This is the ego question, okay? When, where, with whom would we like this outcome? At work, with this team, in 3 months, whatever, okay, scope. And then what are our next steps, okay? Pop through those, and everyone is going to start to come together. We need to create a shared vision. We've got all this fracturing because people are going off into their little silos. They're not having a belonging experience. We are in this together, right? So that's your opportunity, my friend. Bring everybody together. Outcome frame is an awesome way to do that. Because remember, it's firing up the prefrontal cortex. It's giving people insights. And if it's their own insight, they're more engaged. All right, woo. Gosh, these things go so fast. So thank you for being with us today. Thank you, Alexis, for helping out. Anything I need to remember on the way out the door, Alexis, besides everybody go to poweryourtribe.com?
No, everyone just visit poweryourtribe.com. You will receive a replay link along with any of the resources mentioned, the worksheet, the Trusted 10, a copy of the PowerPoint within 24 hours, so keep an eye out for that. If you have any questions in the interim, please email ops@smarttribeinstitute.com, and we will be happy to answer any questions that you have.
Beautiful. Thanks so much, you guys, for joining us. I hope you enjoy your new tools, and we'll see you, those of you who purchase Power Your Tribe, we'll see you in February on our next webinar. And thanks. Great holidays to you guys. Thank you for being here.